Welcome back to another edition of the Course Creation Incubator Podcast. I'm your host, Gina Onativia, here to get you inspired, to push you, hopefully, to work on your course creation and your marketing and help you build up the course-based business of your dreams. And I thought we'd talk about breakthroughs today because ever since I worked for the big guy, aka Tony Robbins, I've been kind of obsessed with breakthroughs myself. And in fact, some of you may remember when Tony had a show called Breakthrough with Tony Robbins, and I actually worked behind the scenes on a couple of those episodes. Blew my mind the level of production that went into that TV show. But just ever since then, and working for Tony Robbins, I've been obsessed with this idea of why do some folks break through while some of us get stuck? And if we have the right tools to help us break through when we get stuck, sky's the limit, right? There's nothing that we can't do in terms of our course creation and building up our online businesses. So I love to do these occasional book report podcasts, as I like to call them. I did one on Gap in the Gain by Ben Hardy. I did Deep Work with Cal Newport. I'll link to those in the show notes as well. And what I'd like to do is break down some of the principles that I picked up in a book that I think is especially relevant to us as course creators. So today I want to talk about the newest book that I'm totally in love with, that I think so many ahas for us as course creators. It's Anatomy of a Breakthrough by Adam Alter, bestselling author. Pick it up. I'll link to it in the show notes. And I thought I would break down a couple of the principles that I think are truly relevant for us to help us break through. Because sadly, all too often, I do hear from you guys that, hey, I was making great momentum with my course. Then I hit a lull and I didn't pick it back up. It's a new project. It's exciting when you're first starting it, just like any new project is. And then, of course, you hit that roadblock, you hit the obstacle that leaves you just kind of stuck and the momentum stops. So when life hits or a distraction hits you, you tend to slow down or stop altogether. Now, how do we get unstuck when those moments happen? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. I want nothing more for you to have the tools to get unstuck when it matters most. And getting unstuck, by the way, is something that I hang my hat on in terms of helping students and clients with. At this point, as a digital strategist and a course consultant, I can anticipate where most course creators get stuck in your outline or your course promise, and having too lofty of a course promise or having too much content as part of your course. I'll link to that episode I did about cutting down a bloated course inside the show notes. Scripting and getting lost in a lot of different pieces of content, recording a few videos, not liking what you see and then giving up, building out your site, right? So at this point, I can see where the roadblocks are, and I can anticipate those for you and help you through that. And again, with my Done For You clients or my 6-week accelerator. So by the way, if you are feeling stuck with your course, two options. One, you could check out my online course Jumpstart. If your course is just an idea or if you're in the beginning stages, this low price point program will help you get unstuck or help you build momentum to actually building out the course. It's really great for that, especially if you feel like you have an idea, but you're not sure if it's a best-selling one. And for the 6-week accelerator, like I mentioned, there's so many milestones along the way over the 6 weeks where I'm making sure you're not getting stuck because you have to hit your milestones. Okay, did you do your outline? Did you do your scripting? Did you make your offer? Did you build out your simple sales page, etc.? So it is built explicitly to make sure you don't get stuck. All right, let's break down a few of the principles inside of Adam Alter's book, Anatomy of a Breakthrough. The first principle I want to talk about is this idea of mental entrapment, which Adam talks about in the book, which leaves folks feeling disempowered. So for us as course creators, it's the fear, it's the stress that makes us stop in our tracks sometimes. And it's the distractions that I talked about earlier in this episode as well. And we just feel paralyzed, right? As course creators, as entrepreneurs, I do this to myself where I get procrastinate about different tasks moving forward. And I get into my mind that I don't want to move forward on something. And I get paralyzed sometimes on the silliest things. And then my business coach says to me, that would take you 5 to 10 minutes if you actually focused on it. But meanwhile, I'm paralyzed by this small detail. Now, Adam says in the book, Adam, like he's my friend, so I should call him Alter. The trick is to overcome the paralysis of mental entrapment is to ignore the instinct to act immediately. The best way to deal with being mentally stuck is to do less. Now, a lot of you overachievers listening right now may resist this. Well, Gina, to break through, I've got to do more. All right. But the book makes the argument you really want to pull back, dial back the pressure, counteract the push to do something and to do it now. Resist that urge. And in fact, allow that anxiety or the overwhelm or the fear to wash over you. Fall back on your intuition, which is counterintuitive, right? We've taught to be bold, to push through. Alter talks about this in the book. Never stop moving. Don't slow down. But he says this is terrible advice, and he's got science to back it up. I love this idea of instead of trying to push through, what if I slow down and let those feelings wash over me and then take action? There's actually something really great about that paralysis that our body is trying to tell us to take a moment, slow down, think it through. This is another principle that Alter talks about in the book, and that's radical acceptance, which is a term coined by Tara Brach, a clinical psychologist. And she describes a fear of failure as a universal affliction that plagues us all. It's a form of suffering that we can only overcome if we're kinder to ourselves and learn to lighten up. I mean, so hard sometimes, right? Just this idea of me being less hard on myself. I'm thinking, okay, this is something I've got to work on. And Brock talks about reframing threats as challenges, which is an important tool of radical acceptance. And instead of treating every day as the last word of what you're going to do about that particular project or action, find value in holding back as long as you live to fight another day. Life does go on, and you'll have the chance to master your challenges tomorrow. So there's something so great about that, right? Again, not rushing through it, pushing through it, but taking the long road around it. It's the long game, like we talked about a few weeks ago, and I'll link to that episode in the show notes. We're not sprinting here. We're going to release your course again and again. We're going to make money from it again and again, improving each and every time. Someone just sent me on LinkedIn an article where these two guys made $50 million or more off of one course. And that's what I want for you. I want the long game. Here's the third principle I want you to think about. It's called satisficing. It's a combination of the words satisfy and sacrifice. And here are the origins. In 1956, cognitive scientist and economist Herb Simon suggested there were two approaches to decision making: maximizing and satisfying. Maximizing requires an exhaustive search, oftentimes to get the best outcome. Whereas in satisficing, you search until you land at an option that's good enough. Now, I love this principle because maximizing, as you know, consumes a ton of time and energy, where the satisficing is more conservative yet sensible. So let's talk about what this means to you as a course creator. A lot of times we think we need to maximize our scripts, for example. They've got to be the best. They've got to be perfect. And on this podcast, I've talked about course creators who work on their scripts for weeks, months, and then delay their launches and getting their programs out for years. I don't want this for you. But what if we settled for satisficing and we set aside, a week? And whatever that weekly output is for our scripts, or heck, for recording, is going to be great. And we're going to be satisfied or satisficed. When you have that starting point, you can move forward with your course and then improve from there and just get better. I think we waste a lot of time perfecting before you even get going, and I don't want that for you. Now, with that output in mind, try to reframe your decisions as a satisficer might. And this is what Adam Alter says in the book. It's an excellent mindset for unsticking yourself when you're frozen in place. Between settling and maximizing, there's an option that lays a sweet spot, a first option that generally gives a threshold of acceptability. And in the book, Alter talks about how he wanted to shop for a new car. This is something he could have spent weeks researching and sweating, honestly. But instead, he said, I'm going to set aside one morning, I'm going to do all the research I can. Then he spent several hours looking based on his three criteria, which was safety, cost, and space. And by the afternoon, he had leased a car. That is satisficing. So you'll take the morning to choose, or I'll decide from 2 weeks from today, or I'll work on my scripts for 1 week. That might be much better for you than maximizing. What area can you say with confidence, I'm going to be satisfied with this? Now, Alter goes on to say, strive for excellence instead of perfection. Psychologists have shown that striving for perfection is often debilitating, whereas striving for excellence improves both your performance and your well being. So here's the difference in my mind as a course creator. Excellence, your course site has great navigation, it has some nice graphics. Your student gets to the finish line. They get the promise, they get the transformation. To me, that is reaching excellence. Perfection is thinking that you need Marie Forleo, beautiful custom site graphics, and you need to film in this amazing studio with incredible lighting. That's perfection that you simply don't need. You can get the excellence without having to go for the perfection. And that's exactly what I want for you, especially if you're building your course first time out. Your students don't need perfection. They just want the excellence that comes when you deliver an amazing transformation for them. And then in the book, Alter mentions American poet Jack Gilbert. In Failing and Flying, Gilbert suggested we tend to ignore successes and train our attention on failure. Gilbert illustrates this idea by reframing the legend of Icarus. Everyone forgets that Icarus also flew, noting that we universally remember Icarus for plunging to the earth after straying too close to the sun. Gilbert concludes the poem with these lines: I believe Icarus was not failing as he fell, but not coming to the end of his triumph. So Gilbert's answer is to train our attention on the successes that brought us to where we became stuck. In many cases, being stuck is a sign of progress, of having moved beyond a place of comfort and mastery to a place where you're challenged. The key is to remember that straying to more difficult terrain invites setbacks, but those setbacks are essential for progress in the long run. So I talk to my students all the time and my done for you clients, and the first time they launch, they say, gosh, Gina, that was a lot, right? There were so many layers there and not everything went as planned. And we tend to focus on the things that didn't go well instead of focusing on the successes. I'll have course creators, I'll have accelerator students who only sold 3, 4, 5 people into their course. And they focus on the failure because they wanted 7 or 10 instead of celebrating and really loving on those 3, 4, or 5 people who become ambassadors for the next time you sell your course or the next program you sell or the mastermind or group coaching or whatever your high ticket offer might be. So that's what success is about in the long run, building on progress and acknowledging that you put yourself out there and that you went for progress instead of just laying on the sidelines and not even getting in the game. So those are just a few principles that I thought were really excellent in the book. And what's cool is at the back of the book, there's 100 ways to get unstuck. All right, let me read a few of these. The first step to getting unstuck is accepting that barriers are universal. When you see other people succeeding, remember you're getting the after shot. Now, the before shot included 1 or 2 or 100 barriers that were hidden from you. If you guys have seen that meme on social media, it's an iceberg and you see the top of the iceberg and you see below, and the top of the iceberg is all the accolades, and it's just peeking out maybe 10% of the iceberg. Then below the water is the 90% of the iceberg and all of the struggle and the grief and the fight that you did to get that 10% that's actually sticking out above water. That to me is what that principle is all about, the before and the after. Okay, here's another one. Before you quit, keep going for longer than you believe you should. Most successes take longer than people anticipate. Time is your friend. The more experience you gain, the more likely you are to overcome sticking points. Oh, this is great about traps. Many stubborn traps don't look like traps at all, which is a large part of what makes them so stubborn. We respond to them slowly or not at all. Mental traps are often more dangerous than physical ones. Humans deal quickly with physical traps, but slowly, if at all, with our mental traps. Removing pressure from yourself and others is the first easy step to improving creativity and general performance. That's what we talked about today. Again, great book. Pick it up. I'll link to it in the show notes. Make sure you subscribe because I've got some really great guests coming on the podcast very soon. And DM me on Instagram. I love hearing from you guys. If you have questions, I'll send you a video or I'll send you an audio. Until next week, go create, be you and be brilliant, and get it done.